The sky above Karen's fall was a sickly yellow-gray, choked with ash and the lingering stench of melted steel. The colony had once housed 500,000 workers, engineers, scientists, all gone now. Their bones were buried beneath slag heaps and rusting scaffolds, their voices replaced by the hum of scavenger drones and the shriek of rusted metal shifting in the wind. Elias Cade moved through the wreckage with the ease of someone who had walked this dead world too many times. His boots crunched over cracked ferrocrete as he ducked beneath a fractured support beam, the light from his visor cutting through the dust like a blade. He wasn't here for ghosts. He was here for parts core modules, clean conduit, maybe a functioning high relay if luck hadn't abandoned him entirely. The biomech refinery ahead had collapsed years ago during the bombing, but buried tech meant buried credits. That was enough. He slipped inside through a torn blast door, the air inside cooler, stagnant. The building groaned, old metal protesting his presence. Elias scanned the shadows with a handheld sensor, just static and silence. He moved deeper, ducking past tangled cabling and skeletal drone frames. A low creak sounded above him. He paused, hand on the butt of his pistol, but nothing moved. Then he heard it. At first, he thought it was just the wind threading through the broken ducts. But then it came again, faint, rhythmic, not metal, not mechanical. A voice. He turned, narrowing his eyes. The refinery's lower levels had caved in long ago, just a mess of twisted support struts and slag, but sound carried strangely down. Here, he hesitated, then moved toward it. The stairs were gone, so he dropped down his service shaft, landing hard on one knee. His flashlight swept the gloom. Rows of shattered containment pods lined the walls, their biometric locks long dead. Then, he saw it. A crude cage, half crushed beneath fallen debris. Welded from scrap, ringed in rust, but still whole. Inside, something stirred. It was a girl, small, thin, curled in on herself. Shackles too large bit into her wrists and ankles. Her skin shimmered with a pale lavender hue beneath grime, and bruises and tangled white hair spilled across her face. She didn't flinch when the light hit her. She barely moved, but her head lifted slightly, and her eyes, silver, almost luminous, met his. Elias's breath caught. She didn't beg, didn't speak. She just looked at him. And in that one look, Elias saw everything fear. Yes, but worse. Expectation. Like she'd seen 1,000 passers-by before him. Like she already knew he'd walk away, and so he almost did. He wasn't a hero. Not anymore. Maybe not ever. Good people didn't last long in places like this. They got swallowed by guilt, by the weight of a galaxy that didn't give a damn. You survived by looking out for yourself. That was the rule. That had always been the rule. He turned, took 3 steps. Stopped. Her breath hitched behind him. Elias closed his eyes and sighed through his teeth. Don't know why the hell I'm doing this, he muttered. He turned back around, pulling the plasma cutter from his belt. The tool sparked to life, with a sharp hum, casting blue light over the cage bars. The girl's silver eyes widened, not in hope, but in disbelief. Elias stepped forward. Let's get you the hell out of here. Asterisk. The plasma cutter hissed as it sliced through rusted metal, molten sparks falling like fireflies into the dust. Elias worked methodically, jaw tight, eyes flicking between the weakening bars and the girl inside. She hadn't moved, not really. She just sat there, bones sharp beneath bruised skin, watching him with an unreadable gaze. No tears, no pleas. Just that same quiet disbelief. When the last bar groaned and fell away, Elias deactivated the cutter and crouched low. You gotta move, or am I carrying you? The girl hesitated, then tried to stand, but her legs buckled beneath her, and she crumpled with a sharp gasp. Elias caught her before she hit the floor. She was lighter than she should have been. Too light. Malnourished, dehydrated, maybe worse. Her skin felt cool under his gloves, clammy with sweat. She tensed in his grip, expecting pain. He could feel it in the way her fingers twitched, ready to recoil. But when it didn't come, she went still confused, maybe. Elias didn't speak. Words felt too big for this moment. He just lifted her gently and turned toward the shaft. The climb was harder going up. Elias grunted with effort, pressing his back against the crumbling wall and using sheer muscle to pull them both upward. She didn't say a word, didn't make a sound. Only her shallow breathing reminded him she was still conscious. When they emerged back into the refinery's upper levels, the light was dimming, sunset bleeding through the smoke-choked sky. Elias moved fast now. Scavengers prowled. At dusk, and someone else might have heard that plasma cutter. His bike was stashed beneath a collapsed tower outside, camouflaged beneath scav netting. He slung her over one shoulder, ignoring the flare of pain in his arm. She didn't resist, just hung there like a forgotten doll. He strapped her carefully into the passenger rig, then climbed on. The engine growled to life, coughing through dust filters before roaring across the barren plains. Terran's Fall stretched behind them like a scar. 30 minutes later, the bike slid to a stop before a metal hatch half buried in ash. Elias keyed in a code. The locks disengaged with a mechanical hiss, and the bunker door creaked open. Inside, the air was stale but safe, shielded. Power cells still ran the lights, dim but warm. He carried her in and set her down on the cot-thin mattress, but clean. She blinked at the change in light, flinching as if expecting pain from simply being indoors. Elias rummaged through a storage crate and returned with a hydration tube and a protein bar. "Drink first," he said, kneeling beside her. She didn't take it. He frowned. "You gonna die stubborn, or let someone help you for once?" Her fingers twitched again. Then, slowly, she reached out, took the tube in both hands, and sipped. She coughed, gasped, but swallowed. Progress. Elias watched her closely. "You got a name?" A long pause. Her voice was thin, rasping. "Vela. Vela." He tested it. "All right, I'm Elias." She looked at him, really looked at him. "Why, did you help me?" He didn't answer right away, just leaned back on his heels, staring at the dull bunker ceiling. "Because I'm tired," he muttered. "Tired of watching the galaxy break people and doing nothing about it." Vela blinked, eyes shimmering faintly in the dim light. "No one ever came before." "Yeah," Elias said, standing. "Well, someone finally did." And for the first time in years, something inside him felt almost human again. Asterisk, the storm howled outside the bunker, its shrieking winds kicking up ash and scrap across the barren flats of Terran's Fall. Inside, however, all was still. The silence was thick, the kind forged in the aftermath of something broken, not loud, not violent, just ... hollow. Vela sat on the edge of the cot, blanket draped over her thin shoulders, staring at the rust-flecked floor. Her wrists were wrapped in gauze now, Elias having cleaned the worst of the abrasion wounds. The shackles had rubbed skin to the bone. Every movement still ached. But for the first time in cycles, she wasn't cold. Across the room, Elias worked at a cracked console. Salvaged parts splayed out before him. He hadn't asked her for anything since they returned. No questions, no expectations. He just let her sit, let her breathe. That, in itself, was strange. "You're not like the others," she said quietly. Elias didn't look up. "Never met the others, but I'll take that as a compliment." She studied him, the hard angles of his face, the scar that crossed just under his right eye. He was older than she thought, maybe mid-30s, but carried a weight that added more years. His hands moved with precision, yet he never rushed. He worked like someone who had seen too much and was trying to stay busy so the memories didn't catch up. "I know why they left me," Vela said. That made him pause. "I was part of something," she continued, voice faint. "Not a person. A trial. A prototype for something they called Project Veil. My kind, whatever we were, never existed naturally. We were designed." Elias turned now slowly, his expression unreadable. "What were they trying to build?" Vela shook her head. "Weapons. Predictive minds. Creatures that could sense conflict before it began. Control it. Influence it. Most didn't survive long. I was considered a failure because I couldn't stabilize my—" She broke off, eyes flickering with something between pain and fear. Her hands trembled as she clenched the blanket tighter. "Because you couldn't control your ability?" Elias asked, stepping closer. She nodded. "I would hear things. Feel things. Not just emotion deeper. Like I was tuned to the gravity of intent. The tension before someone decided to pull a trigger. The crack in a lie before it broke. And that made you a threat?" "It made me unreliable," she whispered. "They beat it out of me, drugged me, until I was quiet. Until I stopped trying to use it." Elias knelt in front of her, arms resting on his thighs. "And then they caged you. Left you behind like scrap." Vela didn't answer. She didn't need to. "I've seen slavers do terrible things," Elias muttered. "But leaving someone alive in a cage just to rot. That's something else." She met his eyes again, and for the first time, her gaze wasn't cautious. It was curious. "Why do you care?" He exhaled, scratching his jaw. "Because I know what it's like to be left behind." A silence settled between them, heavy but shared. He stood. "You're not some experiment to me, Vela. You're not broken." She looked away. "I don't believe that." "Then borrow my belief for a while," he said. "I've got more than I need." She blinked at that. His tone hadn't changed, but the words, they meant something. Outside, thunder cracked, shaking the bunker walls. Elias didn't flinch. He crossed back to his console and tapped a few keys. "You're safe here. For now. But if Praxis sent a tracker unit to Terran's fall, more will follow." Her hands tightened in the blanket. "They won't stop until I'm erased." Elias looked over his shoulder. "Then we make damn sure you're not so easy to erase." Vela's breath hitched. For the first time in her life, someone wasn't just hiding her, wasn't just protecting her. He was preparing to fight for her. That terrified her. And somewhere, deep inside, it also sparked the first ember of something far more dangerous than fear. Hope. Asterisk. The silence didn't last long. At first, it was a low hum, barely noticeable beneath the howling storm outside. Elias didn't move. He sat still at the console, the hairs on the back of his neck rising. He recognized that sound. It wasn't wind. It wasn't power lines. It was a drone sweep. He stood fast, already strapping his sidearm to his thigh. "Vela," he said, voice sharp, focused. "Get down, under the cot. Stay there. Don't make a sound." Vela didn't ask questions. She slid off the edge of the mattress and obeyed, limbs still weak, heart pounding. The metal under her back was cold, but it was the heat in Elias's voice that scared her more. Elias moved to the door, fingers dancing over the panel beside it. He tapped into the bunker's outer sensors, crudely wired, old tech, but still functional. The screen flickered. Movement. 3 figures. Metallic signatures. Armored. Praxis Kill Squad. Exhaled through his nose. "Damn fast," he muttered. "Too fast." He moved without hesitation now, grabbing a battered rifle from the rack, slapping in a fresh mag, then moving to the ceiling vent and pulling down a small metal case. Inside grenades, shock mines, and a sawed-off shotgun so old it still smelled. Like fire, he wasn't going to win this with stealth. Not in tight quarters. And not with praxis. The outer hatch blew in with a shriek of tortured steel and plasma fire. A concussive wave slammed through the bunker, throwing dust and shrapnel into the air. Vela flinched beneath the cot. She didn't scream. She just curled tighter. Boots pounded against the floor. Heavy, rhythmic, armored. Then boom. The hallway. Mine Elias left at the corner, detonated with a flash of blue-white fire. Screams followed, distorted by helmet coms, sharp and panicked. He was already moving, low and fast, eyes scanning ahead as he pulled the trigger. The first trooper stepped. Into view, tall, plated head to toe, in ceramic exo-armor. Elias fired point blank. The round punched through the trooper's helmet, spraying sparks and gore as the body hit the ground. Another trooper rounded the corner, swinging a pulse rifle. Elias ducked behind a pillar as energy bolts scorched the wall. He rolled to the side and tossed a flash bomb. The detonation lit up the entire corridor like a miniature sun. He charged before the enemy could recover. One blast, two. The second trooper went down, screaming, armor crackling with heat. Then came the third. Bigger. Faster. Commander. Unit. It kicked Elias into a wall with a metallic crash. Pain shot through his ribs as he hit the ground hard. His rifle skittered away. The trooper advanced, pulse cannon primed. Return the asset, it growled through a voice modulator. Or die, human. Elias coughed, blood in his mouth. Yeah? Eat me. The cannon charged. Then the lights in the bunker dimmed. A pressure dropped into the room, like gravity had doubled. The trooper paused, momentarily confused, and then Elias saw her. Vela. She stood at the end of the hallway, barefoot, still swaying from weakness, but her eyes glowed silver, her hands trembling with energy. The air around her shimmered like heat off a plasma core. No one cages me again, she whispered. The commander turned his weapon on her. Too slow. Vela screamed, and the air around her cracked with psionic force. A blast surged forward, pure, invisible power that crushed the trooper's armor in a single instant. The exosuit crumpled like paper, slamming the body into the ceiling, then the floor. Then silence. Vela fell to her knees, gasping, eyes dimming. Elias stared from where he lay, stunned. You just... He tried, then coughed. I didn't mean to, Vela said weakly. It just happened. Elias struggled to his feet, limping over. He helped her sit, checking her for injuries. Remind me to never piss you off. She laughed, small, hoarse. But real. You saved me first. Looks like we're even now, he said, then paused, eyes hardening. But this changes things. Vela nodded, her expression distant. They'll send more. Yeah, Elias muttered. But now we know something they don't. She looked up at him. You're not broken, he said. You're dangerous, Vela blinked. And that, Elias added, is our leverage. Outside, the storm had quieted. But inside the bunker, the war had only just begun. Asterisk, the wind outside had finally gone still, but inside the bunker, tension buzzed in the air like static before a lightning strike. Vela sat on the floor near the now scorched corridor, her knees pulled to her chest, staring at the warped remains of the trooper's armor. The walls still bore the scorch marks from the pulse cannon. The ground smelled of ionized blood, burnt, metal, and adrenaline. Elias moved with a slow limp, every step deliberate as he swept the bodies for intel. His ribs ached like hell from the commander's hit, but he kept going, adrenaline dulling the pain. He retrieved a dataship from the commander's helmet core, slotting it into his wristpad. Lines of encrypted Praxis code lit the screen. They knew exactly where to look, he muttered. That means someone left a trace. Or we've got a leak. Vela looked up. You mean a tracker? He nodded. Possibly in your old restraints. Maybe biological. He scanned her with his wrist pad. Nothing lit up. If there is a trace, it's encrypted or dormant. But that doesn't matter. They're not guessing anymore. They're hunting. Vela's silver eyes flickered with unease. They won't stop until I'm gone. No, Elias said, turning to her. They won't stop until they know what you are. She frowned. You said I'm dangerous, that we had leverage. What did you mean? He walked to his desk, slotted the dataship into the console, and pulled up an access thread. Remember Project Veil? The thing you said they made you for? Yes, he tapped the keys. The screen showed a Praxis archive scrambled, but partially decoded thanks to old backdoors Elias had kept from his smuggling days. Vela crawled over, peering at the words. She read aloud. Subject 0. Origin template for future neural psionic. Prototypes. Baseline compatible with bio-interface weaponry. Latent synaptic control unknown. Subject terminated. Status pending. Her voice faltered. That's me. Elias looked at her. You're not a copy. You're not a derivative. You're the original Vela. The others, they weren't like. You. They were made from you. She stared hollow. I wasn't just discarded. I was a foundation. And they didn't kill you because you didn't fail, he said. You scared them. Vela sat back, breathing hard. She clutched her arms, as if her own skin was foreign. What happens now? She asked, voice barely audible. Elias stood. We get off this rock. And then we find someone who can help us burn Praxis to the ground. Vela blinked. You want to fight them? I don't want to, Elias said. But I've been on the sidelines my whole damn life, watching people get erased. I lost my entire squad on Ecrian 4 because I hesitated. Thought maybe the bastards had limits. His gaze hardened. They don't. Vela hesitated, then reached out, bare fingers brushing his forearm. You won't do it alone. They shared a quiet moment, neither fully knowing what they'd become to each other yet. But something had changed. The next morning, they rode through the wasteland on Elias's hoverbike, bunker sealed behind them. The sky was clearer then. It had been in weeks, the burnt haze replaced by cold light. Vela wore scavenged gear, Elias's old jacket draped across her shoulders. They made their way to the edge of the ruined monorail line that once connected the colony to the spaceport. Buried beneath layers of collapsed steel and sand was something Elias had hoped he'd never have to use again, an old Praxis drop crawler, partially intact. He'd found it years ago during a supply run. He'd buried it, thinking maybe one day he'd need a way off-world that didn't involve questions. They cleared the top hatch and slid inside. The air was stale, but the power core hummed with life when Elias hot-wired the ignition. Lights flickered on. Rust shook from the walls. Vela sat at the co-pilot's seat, hands curled around the edge. This thing still flight-capable? She asked. Elias smirked. Not comfortably. But it'll get us where we need to go. She leaned back. And where is that? Elias keyed coordinates into the nav console. Venth Prime. There's someone there I used to run with. A war vet named Malkin. He's got dirt on Praxis, and a memory like a vault. If anyone can tell us why they want you erased, it's him. Vela nodded, silver eyes glowing faintly in the dim cockpit light. And we go. The crawlers. Engines roared, rising from the crater with a shudder. Dust trailed behind them as they pierced the clouds. Neither of them looked back. Terrans. Fall faded behind them, nothing left but corpses and ash. But ahead? Ahead was the truth. And Vela was done being a secret. She would find out who she was, and the galaxy would remember her name. Asterisk. The stars stretched like white scars across the dark as the old Praxis drop crawler shuddered through orbit, its hull groaning under pressure it was never meant to endure. Elias kept a firm grip on the controls, jaw clenched, eyes locked on the SI. "Readout? We're burning too hot," he muttered. "If Malkin's outpost isn't where I left it, we're going to fry on re-entry." Vela sat beside him, her silver eyes calm despite the rattle of the ship. "He'll be there," she said. "You trust him." "I don't trust anyone," Elias replied, "but I owe him. He pulled me out of a kill zone once with half a lung left. That buys him a visit." The ship's coms hissed, struggling to stabilize as they broke through Venth Prime's atmosphere. Clouds whipped past the viewport in streaks of red and orange. Below, jagged peaks and barren ridgelines, cracked by centuries of orbital mining and abandoned war machines. They landed hard in a hidden crater between two ridge spines, the drop crawler's skids groaning on impact. Smoke belched from the engines, but the ship held. Elias cursed and slammed the shutdown sequence. "Still alive," he said. "Always a good start." They stepped out into the dry, biting air, the crater littered with old wreckage. Elias led her down a jagged path toward a half-buried command station, masked beneath decades of dust and camouflage netting. "Place smells like burnt gun oil and bad memories," he muttered. A sensor clicked. They froze. Then the door creaked open, and a voice rumbled from the shadows. "You look worse every time I see you, Cade." Elias grinned. "Still got both legs, Malkin. That's a win, yeah?" A mountain of a man stepped forward, his frame a patchwork of cybernetics, burn scars, and old tattoos. His eyes, one natural, one synthetic, fell on Vela, and something flickered behind them. "You brought a Z-Proto here?" Malkin's tone dropped like a hammer. Vela flinched. "She's not a threat," Elias said. "She's the reason Praxis is lighting up every back channel in the outer rim." Malkin scowled. "They purged the Z-line cycles ago. You're saying she's alive? One of them?" "She's the template," Elias said. "Subject 0. And Praxis doesn't want her back. They want her erased." Malkin stared at Vela for a long moment. Then he turned and motioned them inside. "Then we don't have time to waste." The interior was part war museum, part data vault. Screens flickered with encrypted feeds. A wall-mounted archive thrummed to life as Malkin inserted a data spike. "After the war, Praxis started cleaning house," he said. "Wiped everything that didn't serve their vision of order. That included the Z prototype's engineered minds that could read intent, influence outcomes, destabilize threats before they formed." He pulled up a holoimage young alien children in testing rooms, attached to wires, restrained. "They didn't just fear your kind, girl. They knew what you were becoming. Not weapons, not assets." "Revolution," Vela whispered. Mal, Ken nodded. The Z prototypes had something no AI could simulate: conscience. Praxis couldn't control that. Elias leaned forward. "So they tried to bury it. And now that she's alive, they'll throw everything at her," Malkin said. "Because if the galaxy finds out Praxis tried to erase sentient life to keep their empire neat and clean, they'll burn." Vela stood silent for a long moment, watching the old footage play. Children like her, some screaming, some silent, some already gone. Then she spoke. "I want to make them answer." Malkin studied her. "You're still unstable. Your psionics aren't calibrated. If you fight now, I don't want to wait anymore," she said. "Every day I wait, more of them die. More get locked in cages like I did. If I can bring Praxis down, even a little..." Elias stepped beside her. "Then we do it together." She turned to him. "Even if it kills you?" He didn't blink. Especially if it pisses them off, Malkin smirked. You're both idiots. But I've got a node access point that can get you into the Praxis mainframe on Core Ventillion. It's a suicide run. Vela nodded. Then let's die loud. Alias cracked a smile. Spoken like a human. They left that night, their ship. Patched, loaded with data, and armed for war. But what mattered more wasn't their weapons. It was the broadcast Vela recorded just before launch. A message sent across a dozen outlaw channels. I am Subject Zero. My name's Vela. I was made. To be silent. To obey. To die. But I lived, and I remember. To everyone still in chains, I'm coming for the ones who built them. And I won't be alone. It spread like wildfire and in dark corners of the galaxy, on prison moons, among ex-slaves, refugees, and hunted creatures. It sparked something not even Praxis could stop. Hope. As the stars opened before them, and their ship vanished into the black. Elias looked at Vela, her silver eyes burning with quiet fire. Guess this is how legends start, he said. Vela stared at the stars. No, she whispered. This is how they end. The end for now. Asterisk.